If you'd told me 5 years ago I'd be drinking green tea instead of my morning coffee, I'd have laughed you straight out of my kitchen. But here I am, Harold Bennett, 72 years old, sitting by my window in Columbus, Ohio, watching the sunrise spill over the maple trees. The house is quiet except for the faint hum of my blood pressure monitor. It blinks 118/76. I grin like a kid who just aced a test. That number used to mean nothing to me. I thought blood pressure was just another line on a doctor's chart. Until the day it nearly ended me. It was a hot July afternoon. I'd decided to mow the lawn before the grandkids came over. The sun was high, the air thick, and I remember thinking, just one more pass. The next thing I knew, the mower was still running and I was flat on the ground, staring at a sky that wouldn't stop spinning. My neighbor, Joe, found me a few minutes later. Thank God. At the hospital, the doctor said I'd had a mild warning stroke. Mild. That word stuck with me, like a tap on the shoulder from fate saying, "You've been warned, Harold." They kept me overnight, hooked up to wires and machines, and I couldn't stop staring at my reflection in the dark window. My hands looked older, my face tired, my heart heavy. I realized right then that I'd built houses for 40 years, but never built a healthy life for myself. When I got home, I looked at the half-mowed lawn and thought, that could have been the last thing I ever did. That day wasn't just a scare. It was a message, one that changed everything about how I live, eat, and think. Have you ever ignored your body's warning signs, thinking you'd deal with it later? Well, I did. And later almost didn't come. If I'm being honest, my relationship with food started long before the doctors ever mentioned the word hypertension. It began in a small steel town in Ohio, sometime around 1955. Back then, nobody talked about calories or heart health. Food was comfort, pride, and love. Served hot and fried in a black iron skillet. My dad worked long shifts at the mill. He'd come home coated in sweat and dust, toss his lunch pail on the counter and say, "Your mom's cooking could fix anything." And maybe he was right. Her biscuits could make you forget every bad day. Her gravy was thick enough to build a house on, and if there was bacon left on the plate, well, that was proof life was good. I was a happy, round-faced kid who believed bigger meant stronger. My mother called me her little bull. I'd clean my plate every time. Fried potatoes, sausage, eggs swimming in butter. Vegetables were rabbit food in our house. If you asked for a salad, folks looked at you like you'd lost your mind. At school, I wasn't much better. My lunchbox was filled with white bread sandwiches, cookies, and a can of cola. I'd trade the apple my mom packed for someone's bag of chips every time. The teachers told us milk made bones strong, but nobody said anything about blood pressure or arteries. Looking back, I can't blame my parents. That was the culture. Work hard, eat hearty, and don't complain. But what I didn't realize then was that every bite was planting a seed for the future, one that would take decades to grow into trouble. And the irony? I used to laugh at the old folks talking about their blood pressure pills. I didn't know that one day I'd be the man in the waiting room, rolling up his sleeve for the same test. Funny thing is, the habits you pick up as a kid don't just go away. They grow up right alongside you, and sometimes they grow stronger than you do. By the time I hit 17, I thought I had the world figured out. A part-time job, a few bucks in my pocket, and all the freedom I could handle. My first job was at a shiny new burger joint called Burger Haven. The smell of sizzling patties and fresh fries hit you the moment you opened the door. To me, that smell was success. I wore that paper hat like a crown. After school, I'd flip burgers for hours, humming along to Elvis on the radio, proud to be part of something that felt so modern and American. And the best part? Free meals. Every shift ended with a cheeseburger, fries, and a thick chocolate shake. I thought I was living the dream. Fast food was booming back then. Bright lights, neon signs, happy families pulling up in shiny Chevrolets. Nobody cared about sodium or sugar. We just cared about taste, speed, and convenience. My friends and I would joke that ketchup counted as a vegetable, and milkshakes were basically protein shakes. We weren't being careless, just clueless. By college, those habits had hardened. I survived on drive-through meals and vending machines, coffee for breakfast, pizza at midnight. Life moved fast, and so did I. I was invincible, or at least I thought so. My energy was endless, my body strong, and my heart, well, I never gave it a thought. Funny how the things that make you feel alive when you're young can be the same things that slow you down later in life. But back then, I couldn't see that. All I knew was that life was good, food was quick, and tomorrow was guaranteed. If I could talk to that 19-year-old kid now, I'd tell him, "Son, you can't build your future on French fries." But it wasn't until I had a family of my own that I learned the real price of those habits. And trust me, the bill always comes due. By my mid-30s, life was moving faster than I ever imagined. I had a good job as a construction foreman, 2 kids, and a wife who somehow kept the chaos in order. I was proud. The kind of man who left before sunrise and came home after dark, covered in dust and sweat, thinking I'd earned whatever meal was waiting for me. Linda, my wife, was the heart of our home. She'd always say, "Harold, you can't build houses on an empty stomach." And she wasn't wrong. But my version of full usually meant fried chicken, mashed potatoes swimming in gravy, and a couple of beers to wash it all down. We ate big, laughed loud, and lived fast. The doctor started mentioning borderline high blood pressure when I was about 40. I remember laughing it off. "Doc, I climb ladders all day. I'm fine." He told me to watch my salt, maybe lose a few pounds. I nodded, but the truth is, I didn't change a thing. When you're working 12-hour shifts and raising kids, it's easy to think you're invincible. My morning started with 2 donuts and black coffee. Lunch was a bacon cheeseburger from a nearby diner. Dinner? Whatever filled the plate. Sometimes I'd get dizzy after standing too fast, but I'd blame it on being tired. I had a family to support, deadlines to meet. Who had time to worry about numbers on a chart? Linda used to shake her head and say, "Harold, slow down. You're burning the candle at both ends." But I thought slowing down meant losing. I didn't realize how much my body was already losing behind the scenes. Looking back, those were the years when my health started whispering to me. Soft warnings I didn't hear until they started shouting. I still remember that morning like it was carved into my memory. I was 52, standing on a construction site in the middle of July. The sun was brutal, the air thick as syrup, and the stress level through the roof. We were behind schedule, short on workers, and one of the younger guys had just quit mid-shift. My blood was boiling, literally and figuratively. I felt this strange pressure behind my eyes, like the world was tightening around me. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then everything went blurry. I stumbled back, reached for a railing, and missed. Next thing I knew, I was waking up in an ambulance with a mask over my face and a paramedic saying, "Stay with me, sir." At the hospital, the doctor didn't sugarcoat it. "Mr. Bennett, you've got high blood pressure, dangerously high. If you don't take this seriously, you're headed for a heart attack or worse." They handed me a plastic cup full of pills and a new routine I didn't want. I took the medication, but it made me feel off. My energy dropped. I was tired all the time, irritable and moody. I hated feeling like I was at the mercy of a pill bottle. Every time I swallowed one, I felt older, weaker. Linda tried to help. She'd cook lighter meals, nag me to walk after dinner, but I was stubborn. I'd say, "I'm fine, honey, just tired." Deep down, I knew that wasn't true. My blood pressure wasn't just a number. It was a warning, a flashing red light I kept ignoring. That year, I watched a few of my old friends from work fall sick. Some didn't make it. It scared me. But fear alone wasn't enough to change me. Not yet. It would take something far deeper and far more painful to finally open my eyes. They say a man doesn't change until life leaves him no choice. For me, that moment came years later, right after the love of my life was gone. Retirement wasn't what I imagined it would be. I thought it'd feel like freedom, sleeping in, fishing on weekdays, maybe spoiling the grandkids. But when the early mornings stopped, so did my purpose. The phone stopped ringing, my coworkers moved on, and the silence in the house grew louder each day. Linda tried to fill the gaps. She'd suggest walks after dinner or talk about visiting the kids more often. But I always found an excuse. It's too hot. Or, my knees ache. Truth was, I was tired of pretending I felt fine. My blood pressure numbers were still bad. The pills made me groggy, and my diet hadn't really changed. The days blended together, TV dinners, quiet evenings, and one too many naps in my recliner. Then, one morning, everything changed. Linda didn't wake up. Just like that, 47 years of marriage ended in silence. They said it was her heart. I'd sat through countless doctor visits with her, but I never thought the day would actually come. The house felt empty in a way I can't describe. For weeks, I just existed. No energy, no appetite, no reason to do much of anything. One afternoon, while sorting through her things, I found a worn-out cookbook on the top shelf. Healing Foods from Nature. Inside were her handwritten notes, little hearts beside recipes, and pages marked with sticky notes. On the first page, she'd written in her neat handwriting, "Food can heal more than medicine." I don't know why, but those words hit me harder than any doctor's warning ever did. Maybe it was her voice I heard when I read them. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was love. That night, for the first time in years, I didn't order takeout. I boiled some oats, added honey, and sat there eating in silence. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And that small start, that simple bowl of oats, would end up changing everything. Because that's where I discovered the first of 5 foods that gave me my life back. Turning 70 didn't scare me. What scared me was realizing how little control I'd had over my own body for decades. After losing Linda, I started thinking differently. She used to say, "Harold, your body's talking to you. You just don't listen." And maybe she was right. I decided it was time to listen. That cookbook she left behind became my new Bible. I didn't know where to start, so I picked one page at random. Oats for a Healthy Heart. The notes in the margin read, "Try this for breakfast. Gentle on pressure." So I did. Every morning I'd wake up, cook a bowl of oats with a drizzle of honey and a few berries. It wasn't fancy, but it made me feel lighter. Within a couple of weeks, I started noticing something. Fewer headaches, more energy, steadier mornings. Then came beetroot juice. Now, I'll admit, the first glass tasted like dirt. But I'd read that beets help widen blood vessels and improve circulation, so I kept drinking it. Within a month, I felt the difference. No more afternoon crashes, no dizzy spells. My color even came back. And then there were bananas. Simple, easy, full of potassium. They became my go-to snack instead of chips or cookies. I started keeping a bunch on the counter and grabbed one every time I felt hungry, instead of heading for junk food. Those 3 foods, oats, beets, and bananas, became my foundation. They weren't just lowering my blood pressure, they were rebuilding me. Every bite felt like a quiet thank you to Linda, a promise that I'd take care of the life she always believed I could live. Neighbors began to notice. "You look different, Harold," they'd say. "You glowing or something?" And for the first time in decades, I actually felt alive. But I wasn't done yet. There were still 2 more foods waiting to complete the picture. And they turned my small progress into a complete transformation. After seeing how much better I felt with oats, beets, and bananas, I figured Why stop there? I was finally starting to feel like my old self again. Steady, clear-headed, even hopeful. So I kept digging through Linda's cookbook, determined to see what else nature had to offer. That's when I found spinach. Simple, cheap, and something I'd avoided my whole life. Linda used to joke that I treated spinach like poison, but I learned it's packed with magnesium, one of the best minerals for relaxing blood vessels and balancing blood pressure. So I started adding a handful to my morning omelet. At first, it tasted too green, but after a week or two, I actually craved it. My energy shot up, and I started walking again. First a few steps around the block, then a mile, then 2. The 5th and final food was garlic. That one surprised me most. I'd always seen it as a flavoring, not medicine. But every article said it could naturally lower blood pressure and improve heart health. So every morning, I'd chop up a small clove, swallow it raw with water, and chase it with a banana to kill the taste. It wasn't pleasant, but it worked. My readings kept improving week after week. Before long, I wasn't just eating differently. I was living differently. I cut down on salt, started hydrating properly, and made walking a daily ritual. The aches in my legs faded, my head felt clearer, and the numbers on my monitor began to tell a new story. 132, 126, 120, until finally, 118 to 76. That little screen used to scare me. Now, it gives me peace. I didn't just lower my blood pressure. I rebuilt my relationship with my body, one small habit at a time. But what truly surprised me wasn't the change in my numbers. It was what the journey taught me about life, love, and second chances. This morning felt different. The sun was bright, the house smelled like fresh coffee. Well, decaf these days. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like time was slipping away. I sat by my window, same spot I always do, and watched the light hit the trees just right. The blood pressure monitor blinked, 118/76. I smiled, the kind of smile that comes from peace, not pride. You know, people ask me all the time, "Harold, what's your secret?" And I tell them, it's not a secret. It's a choice. Every day, I choose to listen to my body instead of fighting it. I choose foods that love me back. I choose to walk, to breathe, to slow down. It's not about perfection. It's about patience. When I think about where I started, the man who collapsed in his yard, who thought health came from a pill, I barely recognize him. I was building walls, not realizing I was trapping myself inside them. But now, every oat, every beet, every banana, every handful of spinach, every clove of garlic, they're like small promises I keep to myself, promises that I won't waste this second chance. Sometimes I talk to Linda while I sip my tea. I tell her, "You were right. Food really can heal." I swear I can almost hear her laugh. And maybe that's why I keep going. Because this isn't just about numbers on a screen. It's about love. For life. For the people we've lost. And for the ones still here. If you're listening to this, maybe you're tired of the pills, the stress, the fear. Maybe you think it's too late, but it's not. Trust me. I started at 70, and I'm still going strong. You don't have to change everything. Just start with one thing. One food, one walk, one promise to yourself. You can't go back, but you can start again. And sometimes, that's more than enough.